Hi, welcome back to Westbury 101. I'm Brian Westbury, Chief Economist at First Trust Portfolios. Remember, we want to be the antidote to conventional wisdom. Now remember, conventional wisdom these days is telling us that the world's going to fall apart if we don't do something about this debt ceiling, or maybe even if we do. Remember, one side is telling us the economy will collapse, the dollar will collapse, interest rates will soar, it'll be financial Armageddon all over again. The other side is saying if we cut spending, we're going to take lunches away from children and health care away from children, throw grandma off the cliff. And both of these sides are exaggerating beyond belief. And what I always encourage people to do is pay attention to the true facts. Now, Standard & Poor's and Moody's have both come out this week and said, hey, we could downgrade in fact, they came as close as they could to saying we're going to downgrade the United States almost no matter what happens. And guess what? The Dow is still at 12,500. The U.S. government can borrow 10-year money at 2.92%. In other words, the market is blowing off S&P and Moody's about this issue. Now, that's happening for one of two reasons. Either the market says we're going to fix this, we're going to raise the debt ceiling, and they don't worry about it, or they think they're exaggerating the problems, or they believe, in other words, that a downgrade of the United States won't really impact the market, because in the end, it will be a political move if Moody's or S&P downgrades the United States. It is not a real downgrade. We will still pay our interest. We will still roll over the principal on bonds. There will be no default of the United States' debt, whether the debt ceiling is raised or not. So when Moody's and S&P say they're going to downgrade, I call it a political move, because what they're really saying is that what they're trying to do is influence this debate and get the debt ceiling raised. In fact, Moody's came out and said we should get rid of the debt ceiling altogether. Now, this would be a great move for politicians who don't want any limits on their spending, but in reality, it is turning out that this debt ceiling is one of the key, literally prime movers of this whole debt ceiling debate that's taking place today, the whole debate about the size of government. If we didn't have the debt ceiling, we would have just been moving on like there's no literally tomorrow, and borrowing and spending and borrowing and spending. Yet, right now, what's happening is that all the focus is on how big our government is, how much taxes we pay, and we are now getting closer and closer, and actually the heat is building. The Senate today came out with a new plan, $3.7 trillion, they say, in lower deficits over the next 10 years. The president, even though he hasn't read this, has said he's all for it. Joseph Lieberman, senator from Connecticut, they're circulating a very vague, according to the Wall Street Journal, vague plan around Capitol Hill, and Joseph Lieberman says, sign me up. So these politicians in the Senate, they want anything that they can put their hands on that will allow them to get past August 2nd, to move on and forget this debate ever happened. One of the reasons this is all coming out today is that the House is voting on a cut, cap, and balance plan, a balanced budget plan. I won't go into the details. And the Senate needs something to counteract that, because they don't want a balanced budget. Now, there's all kinds of issues with a balanced budget plan, but the point I'm getting to here is that it looks like the U.S. Politician, from the president all the way down, is now focused on cutting spending, cutting the size of the government, and moving past this August 2nd deadline. That's good news from my perspective. Not that we're going to get the perfect plan, not that we're going to actually shrink the size of government back to 18 or 19% of GDP. That would be awesome. That would be what's best for the U.S. economy, but by the fact that we are going to get reduced spending over time. So here's my point of doing this video today. If you are an investor, or if you are worried about the U.S. economy, what I'm telling you is to drop your worries. The reason is we are not going to default. There is tons of political posturing going on, and I want you to ignore that. Ignoring that is the best way to make money, to make profits, to not make mistakes as we move into the next few months. In the end, the United States economy is accelerating. Politicians are moving in the right direction, whether they like it or not. And the reason they're moving that way is because of the debt ceiling itself. Lots of people act like they're scared of the debt ceiling. What I'm suggesting is that you embrace it and realize that it's forcing our fiscal side of the equation to move in the right direction. Now, the question is how fast? Will it move really rapidly and cut spending, or will it move more slowly over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? I don't know the answer to that, but it's moving in the right direction, and that's really positive for investors. So what I'm suggesting to you is don't fear this debt ceiling debate. In the end, investors who stay the course and stay long and stay optimistic will be rewarded. Thanks so much for visiting Westbury 101. Remember, we want to be the antidote to conventional